So we are experiencing some of the effects of Hurricane Helene. Now, Hurricane Helene is really going to hit the west coast of Florida, but still we are expecting gusts up to 48 miles per hour on the east coast. So this has implications for your mango trees, and there are a few things you can do to minimize possible damage on your trees. One of the things is, of course, trimming the tree. This tree right here have not grafted onto it yet, and so it's really not, the graft unions are sort of a point of weakness in the early stages of the graft, but this one doesn't have any grafts on it, so it'll be the last thing that I do. I'm going to check the other trees first because they are a higher priority. This is a tree that I've been top working, so there are a lot of young grafts on it. Now, already you're starting to see some, like weakness in the growth. Here looks like sad branches. They're all blown from the east side. So those are ones that I'll probably cut some of the leaves off of. We have some situations with very young leaves, like right here. And one of the things I do in this situation is just like rip off most of the leaves. At this stage, it's just very easy to rip. And as long as you keep a little part of the leaf on there, it'll keep supporting this growth, and it's going to be lighter though and less resistance to the wind. So that should make just fine. So we have here another situation with very young leaves. That's also grafted. So again, just ripping off part of the leaves, and that will make this a lot safer through the high winds that we might get. And it still keeps this active. This part of this whole section of the tip here is going to still be active. If you cut off all of the leaves, it just doesn't, I don't think it's necessary, basically. So yeah, very easy to do with this. This is a little bit of a older leaf, so that's a situation where I just will use my pruners to cut that, and the rest of the leaves are young. No big deal. This one's a little bit older. Okay, so that's all you do for this situation. Then we have a whole bunch of large young leaves. So this is all just very easy to rip, but just decreasing the weight of this particular branch on the end when it's heavier and there's more water in this young growth, and then you also have just more growth, and so we take some of this potential wind resistance off, and then while we're doing that, it's making this whole area lighter, this whole branch. So yeah, I have definitely seen branches like this ripped off by the wind when I haven't done this. So it doesn't take that much time. And even though this is a big leaf and it has more wind resistance, it's much lighter because it's mature. These younger leaves are just full of water. So those are the most important ones, in my opinion, to decrease the surface area, because you're decreasing the wind resistance areas, but also somewhat more importantly, in some situations, you're also decreasing the weight. So it's actually bounced up a little bit since I started doing that. So one thing you can do is decrease the wind resistance, and especially with the young leaves. Another thing is, here's a situation here. I'm started top working this tree, and there are some areas that are successful here. This is a successful graft. This is also, but then we have some areas higher where it doesn't look like the grafts are successful. Yep. So I do the scratch tests on the grafts, and if you scratch with your fingernail and get just, you know, rotten wood, then it's not good. And this is an opportunity to make this tree shorter. It'll be much better to have grafts lower down. So there's a little leaf bud right here, so I'm just going to cut at this point, and instantly there's less wind resistance on this tree. So I'm just going to do that in a few different places, because this part didn't have any grafts on it, so just cut that off. I've got some really nice shoots here that I'd like to keep for grafting onto, even though they're a little bit high, but they just look really luscious. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm just going to cut off the young growth spurts. This is immature, heavy, and very vulnerable to wind. So just cut that off, that one, and that one. So these will be ready to graft onto after the wind passes. Here's another branch that can be cut back. The wind really hits the tops of these trees, of course. So get this out of the way. And yeah, probably just focus on the young growth after this. You want to keep, I cut this up. Changed my mind. So those were parts that I had not yet grafted onto. Get rid of the wind resistance pretty easily. There we go. So just taking off the young growth here. Don't need it. This is a good stage. I can graft something onto those very easily once the wind stops. So that's all I'll do for this tree. It looks like it, you know, if I were a little bit taller, I'd probably cut a couple more branches, but they're little, and it really will be, should not be impactful at all. While you're out trying to trim leaves and such on your trees, one thing you might run across is a possible great scion to prep. So, you know, what I like to do is cut off the leaves, so that's perfect as far as a windy situation. Very, like next to no wind resistance at all. And I cut off the leaves from their stems and just wait for the buds to start forming. So that's one of the good things about having to like protect your trees. You might run across some situations where you're like, oh, that would be a wonderful scion later. We got this tree ready for the wind just yesterday. Took a lot of the branches off. And these are just a little bit too tall, I think. They're catching quite a bit of wind, so I'm just going to take a little bit of these off so that they don't provide too much resistance. Then we have a young graft here, very young. So get some of these leaves. I definitely don't want it to be blown off the tree, and sometimes that can happen. This looks pretty good, but take a little bit off anyway. That one should be fine. We've got some tall, relatively tall pieces here, so I'm going to leave 3 of the big leaves on down here, and that will probably be where the next set of branches emerge. Let's see how these branches come out right above the leaf, and so just cut it back so the next set of branches should look quite a bit like this. The tallest stuff that is the most vulnerable. I think that's pretty strong. Let's go revisit this area. I think this is the last 2 that I'll do. Famous last words, last 3, I guess. So I'm feeling better about this tree with the wind. I think that's all I need to do, and it will look gorgeous and nice and full by the time mango season comes around. A good way to be prepared for just about anything is to keep your trees trimmed fairly low in the first place, because of course the wind is much stronger the higher up you go in trees, and also there's more leverage, you know, when you have something that's tall that doesn't take as much force to knock it over. So our trees have already been trimmed for the year, every one of them, I think, and so that is very helpful also. You know, if you do have tender growth, and especially on small plants, think about going out there and trimming some of the leaves. It shouldn't really affect the growth that much, and it is a good protection from the wind. So we hope that your trees stay safe, but especially that you and your families are safe in these very windy conditions. Some parts of Florida are really going to be hit hard. We're fortunate here in Delray Beach that we're getting the effects of the outer bands of the storm, but we're not going to get the devastating impact that a lot of other parts of Florida might get. So stay safe.